Okay, hello there viewers. So let's start with this summary of this topic. I know this topic can be very overwhelming, but if we have a big picture of it, maybe it will be quite fine. Okay, so let's start with inequalities first. There are three types of inequalities question, which is quadratic, in between, and fraction. Right? So let's have a look on how we solve them. So let's start with the quadratic, which is the simplest of all. Well, you can have yourself a quadratic inequality, something like this. Okay, don't forget that you can find yourself there's a squared here and there's an inequality sign. So it's inequalities, quadratic inequalities. Well, the best way to solve, in my opinion, we need to use in the smile graph method. So make it a smiling graph. And yeah, I highly recommend you make this front as a positive. It's a negative, then I recommend you multiply the negative manually. Right, since it's more than 0, so it's over here. And your answer lies between there. You can either leave yourself in inequality form or interval form. Both of them are fine. Right, so now let's move on to in between. For the in between cases, well, you might get yourself something like this. Right, where you can see yourself there's an inequality sign over here and here. I highly recommend you use the SSC method, which I call it the split solve combine. But normally I just talk to my student SSC. Alright, so if you see this question, the first thing you need to do is you need to split it up into two parts. Okay, where remember for in between it's always n, there's not much difference, and then you combine it out. You combine in the number line method, and here since it's an n, you need to find where's the intersection. The intersection is over here, so that's your n. Your answer lies between that. Or you can write down your answers in interval form, such as this. Whoopsie, 1, 4. And here's a square bracket since it's square. Right? Okay, so moving on to the next one. For the final part, which is the fraction inequalities, there are two things that you need to do. Firstly, you need to get yourself in the factorized form, and second, I highly recommend by using the table method, because number line there's a lot of confusions. Okay, so let's give it a go. You might have your question something like this. Okay, where there's one side here. And I highly recommend for you to move forward that you need to bring the thing on the right side to the left. So you got the things on the right side as equals to 0. Alright? So now only you can proceed. When you got yourself here, you need to simplify it out. Here I put it right down over here. You simplify the things out. Okay? Just make the denominator the same, and once you reach here, you see there's a negative at squared. So negative quadratic inequalities. I recommend you multiply the negative one manually. Alright, so you can change the sign here. If you do it by calculator, you might get mistakes because they don't show you the change of sign. Right, so once you do that, okay, now I have changed the sign from more to less, factorize it out. Over here, now you need to recognize yourself which one is numerator, which one is denominator. So the numerator, I make it equals to negative 3 equals to 5, denominator I make it equals to 3. Why is it that important? Alright, let me show it a bit. Because you need to draw the number line, okay, where the denominator, it must be big circle without the full dot. These two numerator, it can has a full dot. The reason is because you cannot divide it by 3. You cannot divide it by 0 when x becomes to 3. When x equals to 3, 3 minus 3 divided by 0. You cannot be doing that. So you need to make it into a full dot. Alright. So once you reach here, you need to draw yourself, write down yourself the intervals between those number lines, and then you draw yourself the table. Okay. The thing on the left, it needs to be all these factors. The factors that we get ourselves from here. I recommend you get yourself from the negative to positive, from the less till more. Say negative 5, negative 3, and positive 3, so become more and more. Right, from here you need to choose yourself a number somewhere between there. So let's say between this, just choose any number. Let's say negative 4, x equals to negative 4. So substitute inside negative 4 minus 5 minus 9, negative 4 minus 3 minus I just want the negative 4 plus 3 is still a negative. Okay, so we do the same for the rest of them. So choose any number here. Let's say 0 minus 5, 0 and negative 0 minus 3, negative 0 plus 3 is positive. Choose any number here. Let's say 4 minus 5, negative 4 minus 3, positive 4 plus 3, positive. Choose any number here. Let's say 6 minus 5, positive. 6 minus 3 positive, 6 plus 3 positive. If you do yourself in the less until more, you got yourself into this nice pyramid. You can see over there, nice triangle. Alright, once you reach all of that, you need to multiply all of it. So multiply negative, 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 give you negative, 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 positive, give you positive, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive, positive, positive. And once you reach here, you need to look at the one before the last performance that we had just now. So it's a less than 0. So we need to take the less. The less will be here, the negative. If this one is more, why don't I choose this one? Because we have changed it, right? If this one is more, then we choose the positive. So then you just copy down the answers, which is these two, and union it out. Alright. For more details, you can look at the details video. Now we're moving on. Okay, there viewers. So let's now finish off with the Modulus Inequalities summaries. There are 3 types of Modulus Inequalities, where I call it both sides, one side, another one is fraction or ratio. Okay, let's start with the easiest one, which is both sides. Simply, we need to square both sides. As you can see here, there's modulus both sides, then only you can square both sides. Simply, you got yourself into that, and expand it out and simplify it. Once you expand and simplify it, you should get yourself into quadratic inequalities. And so for this one here, you just use the smiling graph method and you'll be able to solve it. Alright, since less is down, so your answer is down there. Okay, that's easy peasy part. Now moving on to one side modulus, we're going to use 2 techniques here. It's the split solve combine the SSC method, or either using the Rodhi method, which is more stands for more, or less stands for less than n. Alright, so this is the SSC. Okay, for this type of question, you're going to get yourself into that, where x plus 7 modulus and is more than 7. Okay, so this part, simply split it up first until you got yourself this way. Okay, there's many ways of writing. I find this is the easiest part, where firstly you copy things first, and then you copy half of it, and then for the inequalities and the number on the right side, you just multiply the negative. Okay, so this one we just multiply negative. And remember, more is or, so the more part. Okay, and then you simply try to solve it up. So first we split, and then now we try to solve. We got here, and then once we got here, you can simply combine the answers. Okay, now we combine our answers. I highly recommend you draw 2 levels, where x more than 0 stands for one level, another part of the answer stands for another part of answer level. And since this is union, because it's or is union, so simply union things out, you get your answers, something like that. Okay, still easy. Just to show you another example of the one side modulus inequalities, I'm giving you this time with the less. Alright, so the techniques are still the same. Firstly, you just copy it out first, and remember the right side there is a negative part. Alright, and then we got ourselves these 2 answers. So these 2 answers is just 2 level of answers, so level 1 and level 2. For this case, n stands for intersection, so we just take the intersect part, so you got yourself as here 0 or 3. Okay, or you can leave your answer in inequalities form, such as 0 x until 3. Oh, I make a little bit of mistakes there. So it's a square bracket. Alright, moving on. Now moving on to the final part, which is the fraction ratio modulus inequalities. So I highly recommend we use the dice method, which stands for denominator, cross and exclude. Alright, so let's say if you got yourself this type of equation, x minus 1 over x plus 3 modulus more than 2. Firstly, you take the denominator and you cross it. Alright, once you cross, you're going to get yourself something like this. Remember to exclude it. Okay, the reason why you need to exclude x plus 3 not equals to 0, because you cannot have yourself x equals to negative 3, because if x equals to negative 3, you're going to divide the whole thing by 0. Negative 3 plus 3 equals to 0, so you cannot divide by 0. That's just a big math error. So you need to exclude it. And remember, you do not need to write the all of this line. If you can get this last part, okay, that should be more than enough. But I write all these 3 parts because some students having troubles. And as you can see here, there's a modulus on both sides, and we're going to get ourselves such as the first part, where modulus inequalities, where you need to square both sides. Alright, for squaring this part here, I want you to be a little bit careful. Alright, so since there's a square here, it interacts to this one here, it also interacts to this one here. So you're going to get yourself squared there and squared there. You're going to get yourself something like this. Okay, I've seen a lot of students who forgot to square this one. And once you have squared this, do not forget that you also need to multiply to inside each of them, which you get yourself something like this. I've seen a lot of students who forgot to do this multiplying as well. They just multiply to this part and they forgot the rest here. Okay, so after squaring it, you got something like this, and try to solve it out, simplify it. You got yourself again into a quadratic inequalities, so the same as this part here. So just use the smiling graph method and you got your answers there. But there's a little bit of catch, because just now we have done this exclude -3, and the x not equals to -3 is somewhere in the middle of your answers. Alright, so firstly write your answers as usual, where you want to take the down part since less is down. We're going to do it this way, and we need to exclude backslash not equals to -3, and it need to be in the curly bracket there, because it's a set bracket. Why x must not be equal to -3 again? Because if x equals to -3, I'm going to divide this part -3 plus 3 by 0. I'm going to divide by 0, and that's a big no-no in exams. Okay. Other than that, you can also write your answers in this way, where I write down my answers in inequalities form. So for this one here, this inequalities, instead of a backslash, it's just a comma, x not equals to -3. Either way is fine, depends on what the examiners want. Okay, I also supply you with another example with still the dice method. For this one here, modulus fraction inequalities or ratio inequalities, you can see there. So firstly we take the denominator and then we cross multiply it. Okay, so this is the denominator and I want to cross multiply. Once you cross multiply it, do not forget to exclude it down immediately. Why must you exclude? Because x cannot be -4. If x equals to -4, I'm going to divide the things by 0. If you're advanced students, you may write this line straight away without writing these two lines, and it's okay. If you do not write this line, then you can get 0 marks straight away. Okay, so after you're done here, you see here there's a modulus both sides, so we just square both sides. And be careful not to repeat the same mistakes. I'm just going to skip through because I've explained just now, and we got ourselves quadratic inequalities. So over here you just solve it by graph method. Okay, look here, since we're trying to exclude -4 and it lies in between here, which does not disturb our answers. So in this case, you may just leave your answer in this form. Let's say if you still write down the exclude -4 and with the modulus with the curly bracket, set bracket. If you write this one down, which does not disturb the answers, then unfortunately for this time around, you're going to lose your marks. Okay, so do not write this line. Right, just write this one down, it's okay. In short, if it does not disturb your answers, do not write it down. If it disturbs your answers, like in this kind of case, then you need to exclude it up. Okay, I think I wrap that's up for all that we have done. Sure. Okay, so for inequalities, there are 3 types of question: quadratic, in between, and fraction. Quadratic, you solve it by the smile graph method. In between, you solve it by SSC method. For fraction, you need to get yourself the factorized form, and I highly recommend the table method. For modulus inequalities, there are 3 types of question: both sides, where you square both sides; one side, where you use the splits of combined and molar Rodhi. The fraction ratio inequalities, modulus inequalities, I highly recommend you use the dice method, where denominator cross and exclude. Okay, that's all for today. Good luck and all the best for your exams. And please comment, share, like, and subscribe. Thank you. All the best.